What if I told you that Mary left a secret mission for the families of our time? A silent mission, yet charged with spiritual power, that spans generations and remains alive even in the face of humanity's greatest storms. Have you ever imagined that within the walls of your own home might lie hidden the most important calling of the last times? What I'm about to share here may move you in unexpected ways. Because we're not just talking about faith, but about destiny, the future, and how each family plays an essential role in the prophecies being revealed in Medjugorje. Have you ever felt that your family is more than just a blood bond? That somehow there's a greater mission, something invisible, that unites you in a purpose, that goes beyond routine, beyond everyday problems. Perhaps this feeling isn't just a figment of your imagination, but a direct echo of something that has already been announced: the family as a spiritual refuge, as a faithful guardian of faith. At a time when darkness seems to be advancing over the world, what if all of this is connected to the messages Mary entrusted to a select few in Medjugorje, messages that, to this day, have not been fully revealed to the world? Imagine for a moment, amidst wars, crises, divisions, and uncertainty, Mary would have left specific instructions for families, as if they were spiritual fortresses, prepared to withstand when the winds of tribulation become unbearable. What you're about to discover may surprise you, because we're not dealing with a distant story or an ancient legend, but with something that speaks directly to your life, your home, the space where you breathe, love, and build memories. 7 unrevealed messages are spoken of, holding secrets about the future of humanity. But even without knowing every detail, one truth has become clear. Mary never ceased to insist that family prayer is a powerful weapon against evil, and that the unity of households is the foundation for resistance when everything around seems to be crumbling. Have you ever experienced that moment when your home seemed overwhelmed by tension, arguments, or heavy silences? For that is precisely where the mission of faithful guardians begins, to transform fragility into strength, division into unity, darkness into light. And perhaps you're wondering, but how can I, with so many difficulties, take on something so great? It is precisely at this point that Mary speaks with authority and tenderness. She chose ordinary families, those facing real problems, like yours and mine, to show that true strength is not born of wealth, status, or perfection, but of simple faith, lived in everyday life. A rosary prayed together, forgiveness offered, at the right time, a word of hope spoken when all seems lost. These are the signs that faithful guardians are fulfilling their mission. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to hear here isn't just a reflection, but a call. The apparitions of Medjugorje carry a mystery that continues to awaken millions of people around the world, precisely because they point to something many try to ignore. We are in a spiritual battle, and the front lines are not in palaces or major political arenas, but within our homes. That's where it all begins, and that's where Mary placed her trust. So, get ready. In the next parts of this video, we'll delve deeper into this secret that surrounds families and understand how each of us can truly become a faithful guardian of Mary's mission. The path that opens now can transform the way you see your own home, and what's to come will surprise you. And perhaps, as you hear these words, something inside you is already stirring. It could be a memory of your own family, a moment when you united in faith, or even a pain still raw from the divisions you've experienced. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below with what has touched you most so far, because when you share your experience, you not only strengthen your own journey, but you help others going through the same struggle realize they are not alone. And you know, it's precisely this exchange that keeps this community we're building together alive. Every comment, every word, every reflection you leave here is like a candle lit in the darkness, illuminating paths someone might not even know they needed to see. So, if this message has touched you in any way, don't forget to like it. It may seem like a small gesture, but it's through this that YouTube understands the value of this content and ends up showing it to more people who need to hear this message. And of course, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, take the opportunity to subscribe now. This means you'll continue receiving content like this, always full of meaning, mystery, and hope, while also becoming part of this growing family of faithful guardians. Your participation is what makes this channel grow and reach more people. With this kind of content, and each time someone new joins us, it's as if the circle of light widens, pushing the darkness further away. So, comment, like, subscribe, and follow me, because we still have much to discover about this mission Mary entrusted to families. What's to come will deepen this mystery even further and may change the way you see your home's role in everything that's happening in the world. When we talk about Medjugorje, we're not talking about a simple story lost in ancient books or a legend passed down from generation to generation. We're talking about a living event that began in 1981, when 6 young people from a small village in Bosnia and Herzegovina claimed to have seen a luminous figure who presented herself as the Virgin Mary. This moment forever changed, not only their lives, but also the history of modern spirituality. What seemed like an isolated event in a simple rural region soon spread throughout the world, attracting millions of people seeking answers, solace, miracles, and revelations that could illuminate their own paths. The apparitions in Medjugorje carry a fascinating mystery. They weren't limited to a single day or a brief episode, but extended over years, with constant messages that spoke of prayer, conversion, fasting, and spiritual vigilance. Imagine the impact of this in a time of so much global change, when humanity was advancing in technology but at the same time lost in crises of faith, wars, and instability. It was as if, in the midst of this scenario, a voice emerged from the invisible to remind us, return to the essentials, because something much greater is about to happen. This clash between the routine of ordinary life and the extraordinary nature of the apparitions aroused both curiosity and skepticism, but above all, it generated a wave of transformation that continues to spread to this day. The most intriguing detail is that, over the decades, Mary allegedly entrusted the visionaries with 7 undisclosed messages, known as secrets, that would address the future of humanity. This element further piques curiosity because it touches on something we all carry, the need to understand what lies behind the scenes of history. What isn't in the newspapers or political speeches, but which speaks of a greater destiny, a hidden truth that can change the way we view the present and the future. Now, what often goes unnoticed is that, within these messages, there is a constant emphasis on families. These aren't just warnings about catastrophes, tribulations, or global transformations. There's also a direct call to homes, to the heart of homes, as if each family were an essential part of this great spiritual battle. Mary speaks of the family as a refuge, as a space of light in the midst of darkness, and this is deeply relevant. Think about the amount of pressures a family faces today, rushing around disagreements, the lack of communication, addictions, divisions. All of this weakens the core that should be the foundation of love and faith. When we look at Medjugorje with this perspective, we realize that the mission left to families is not a detail, but a central point. What Mary told the visionaries, and which resonates to this day, is that families need to be faithful, guardians, vigilant. They need to keep the flame of prayer alive, even when everything around them seems cold. They need to cultivate forgiveness, even when resentment tries to dominate. They need to teach values, even when the world tries to erase any reference to faith. And this call is not something distant. It is an invitation to be lived now, in everyday life, in the small choices, in the decisions that shape the mindset and future of each home. If you think about it, families are like small spiritual fortresses. Every prayer said together is like a wall built against despair. Every act of love within the home is like a flame lit in the midst of the darkest night. It's no wonder Mary insists on this point, because if families are lost, the entire foundation of society is weakened, and humanity becomes much more vulnerable to the forces that seek to destroy hope. This is a truth that many perhaps ignore, but which was repeated countless times in Medjugorje, almost as a warning, and at the same time, a promise. If homes become faithful guardians, the light will always find a way to overcome the darkness. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because understanding what these apparitions are, and why they've captured the world's attention, also means understanding the impact they have on our own journey. When millions of pilgrims travel to a small village to pray, seek healing, or find meaning in life, it's not just devotion, it's a reflection of the thirst we all have for something transcendent. And when so many people testify to internal changes, physical healings, or life decisions made after being there, we realize that these aren't just isolated accounts, but a chain that crosses borders, cultures, and languages. It's proof that something is happening behind the scenes, something that defies common explanations and forces us to look beyond what meets the eye. This is the power of Medjugorje, awakening in each of us the awareness that we are part of a much larger story, and that our participation is not passive. We are not just watching prophecies being fulfilled from afar. We are involved in them, within our homes, in the way we care for one another, in the way we choose to respond to the call. And this is the point that directly connects today's families to Mary's messages. It doesn't matter if you live in a big city or a small village, if your life seems peaceful, or if you are in the midst of silent battles. The call is for everyone. And that's precisely what makes this topic so urgent and transformative. When we think of the family as guardians of faith, we understand that we're not talking about something symbolic or merely spiritual, but a concrete mission that has a real impact on the present and the future. It's there, within your home, that you can choose to be light or shadow, hope or despair, love or indifference. Every decision, every action, every word spoken or silenced has a bearing on this journey. So, if something has touched your heart so far, comment below. This resonates with me. I want to know how this topic resonates in your life, because it's through sharing that the message gains even more strength and collective meaning. When we look at the messages left in Medjugorje And in so many other recognized apparitions throughout history, there is a common thread that recurs insistently: the family. Not as an abstract institution or merely a social concept, but as a living, pulsating nucleus, called to be a spiritual refuge in times of uncertainty. The family, in Mary's vision, is not just a space where one shares a roof or a meal. It is the first altar, the first temple, the first school of faith. And that is precisely why she insists so much on this theme, because it is the foundation upon which the entire spiritual and human journey is built. If we think about it, all the great transformations in history have been born within small groups of people. It's within the family that we learn our first lessons about love, forgiveness, patience, and solidarity. It's there that we observe the example of our elders and test our first choices. When Mary speaks to families, she's not just asking them to pray together, she's reminding them that every gesture within the home carries an impact on the future. The silence of unforgiven forgiveness can open wounds that last for years. A hug at the right moment can save someone from falling into the abyss of despair. Every decision, no matter how small, shapes mindsets and defines paths. That's why, throughout the Medjugorje messages, she speaks of the family as a refuge, a place where the world-weary heart can rest, a space protected from external pressures that try to stifle spirituality, and at the same time, a silent battlefield, where we fight daily against indifference, haste, pride, and a lack of dialogue. Anyone who has experienced tension within the home knows what I'm talking about. The harsh words, the ignored gestures, the weight of silence. These moments are real and part of everyone's journey, but they also reveal why the family needs to be guarded so carefully. Because it is there that the enemy of hope tries to strike first. What's striking is how Mary, in her simplicity, always points to solutions that don't require great feats, but rather small, consistent actions. Family prayer, fasting offered with love, reading the word shared among the members of the household. These are the silent weapons that strengthen the home against any storm. Perhaps to some, this may seem small compared to the grandeur of the prophecies, but therein lies the hidden truth. The extraordinary is born from the simple. It is in everyday life that the spiritual strength capable of withstanding the entire world seems to crumble, is forged now. I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because thinking of the family as the first school of faith means understanding that spiritual values are learned not only in temples, but especially behind the scenes of ordinary life. It's at the dinner table, when someone gives thanks for the meal. It's in the quiet bedroom, when a child learns to pray before bed. It's in the forgiveness offered between siblings after a fight. These small gestures are seeds planted in fertile ground, which will one day blossom into mature decisions, choices that will have an impact not only within the home, but throughout the world. The big issue is that, in a time of rapid change, many families have lost awareness of this central role. The rush, the distractions, the relentless pursuit of material gains end up suffocating what should be the priority. Home ceases to be a refuge and becomes a space of haste, pressure, and exhaustion. And it is precisely against this that Maria raises her voice in her messages. She draws attention to the need to reclaim its essence, the family as a place of love and faith, not just a convenience or a social obligation. When she says that homes must be faithful guardians, it's not just spiritual poetry, but a call to a real mission. Every family is like a fortress erected amidst the darkness. Every time we pray together, a flame is lit. Every time we welcome a gesture of love, a wall is strengthened. It is in this context that we understand why the family is called the first school of faith, because it is there that we learn, in practice, the value of surrender, patience, and hope. And it is this foundation that sustains anyone when they must face the world outside. This perspective completely changes the way we view the role of the home. It is not only the place where one lives, but also where one prepares the spirit for the journey. It is the terrain where faith is strengthened and transmitted. And when we understand this, we also understand why the family is a constant target of attacks and divisions, because weakening the family means weakening society. It means destroying the foundation of resistance against the shadows. All of this leads us to reflect on the choices we make within our homes. What do we cultivate daily? What words nourish the environment? What examples are we setting for those who walk alongside us? These questions are essential because they reveal that the mission of being a faithful guardian is neither distant nor unattainable. It begins now, in the actions we take amid the chaos of our daily lives, in the moments when we decide between giving into anger or extending the hand of forgiveness. Therefore, I want you to allow yourself to feel this call personally, not as something that belongs only to the stories of Medjugorje, but as a direct invitation to you and your family. Because the transformation of the world doesn't begin on grand stages, but in the small gestures that are repeated every day, in the silence of homes, in choices made with love. If this message resonated with you, write in the comments, "I'm on this journey too." There's a powerful metaphor that runs through the heart of Mary's messages and often goes unnoticed. Families are called to be faithful guardians. This image isn't just beautiful or symbolic, but profoundly revealing. Being a guardian of faith, in the midst of darkness means taking on the responsibility of protecting what the world tries to extinguish, even when everything seems unfavorable. Think of it like holding a flame in a strong wind at. Every moment there's a risk that the light will go out, but dedication to protecting it ensures that it continues to illuminate the path. The same is true of faith within homes. It needs to be safeguarded with courage, constancy, and love, because it is precisely in the family space that the greatest attacks occur. When we speak of faithful guardians, we are not talking about inaccessible heroes, but about ordinary people, fathers, mothers, children, and grandparents, who, in their seemingly simple routines, carry out an extraordinary mission. Guarding the faith doesn't just mean praying the rosary or participating in moments of prayer, but also preserving unity, cultivating love, and sustaining forgiveness even when coexistence becomes difficult. It is in the silence of their gestures that the true guardian reveals themselves, in that welcoming gaze, in that comforting word, in that decision that prevents a rupture. These are choices that seem small, but have a profound impact, like roots that keep a tree standing even in the midst of a storm. The metaphor of guardians gains even more strength when we understand the spiritual landscape in which we live. There is a growing darkness that manifests itself in many ways, in family divisions, in the loss of values, in indifference to the pain of others, in the advancement of a mentality that despises the sacred and spirituality. This darkness doesn't appear explicitly, but it slowly infiltrates habits, conversations, and priorities, until the light of faith risks becoming nothing more than a distant memory. This is why Mary's call is urgent. She reminds us that every family has the capacity to be a fortress of light, but to do so, it must recognize itself as a guardian and consciously assume this mission. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because being a guardian doesn't just mean enduring, but also transmitting. Guarding the faith implies protecting, but also passing it on, ensuring that it doesn't die with one generation, but continues to live on through children and grandchildren. This is the true spiritual inheritance, not just material possessions, but a mindset rooted in love, hope, and prayer. And this is where many fail to grasp the full extent of their calling. When a family decides to live united in faith, they're not just caring for themselves, they're influencing future generations, creating an invisible impact that extends far beyond the present. Behind the scenes of family life, it's easy to forget this responsibility. The weight of bills, the stresses of daily life, the disappointments, and misunderstandings can make us feel too small to carry something so grand. But it's precisely in this context that the metaphor gains strength. Faithful guardians are chosen not for their perfection, but for their availability. It's in weakness that the mission proves most authentic, because it demonstrates that it's not human greatness that sustains faith, but the constant resolve not to abandon the light. The secret of faithful guardians lies in understanding that the mission is not individual, but collective. No one guards the faith alone. Strength comes from unity, from shared prayer, from mutual support in times of trial. This unity is the key that keeps darkness from penetrating. When one is discouraged, the other supports. When one falls, the other lifts. When hope seems distant, just look around and realize that there are still those who believe, still those who pray, still those who choose love over indifference. And it is precisely this attitude that transforms the home into a refuge. Even when the world around them crumbles, the faithful guardian doesn't close his eyes to problems, but decides to face them with the certainty that he is not alone. He understands that each prayer offered with faith is not just a repetition of words, but a seed planted, which silently germinates and becomes strength to face future battles. This is how the metaphor comes to fruition. The family not only survives the darkness, but becomes a beacon guiding others who have lost their way. This is the hidden truth we often fail to grasp. The greatest spiritual revolution does not begin in grand cathedrals, but in the small homes that choose to live as faithful guardians. It is there, far from the spotlight, behind the scenes, that the most profound transformation takes place. And it is this secret that Mary entrusts to families, because she knew that only they, in their simplicity and unity, could sustain the light in a night that seemed endless. If this resonated with you in any way, comment below. I am a guardian of the faith. When we talk about Medjugorje, there's one detail that raises more questions than answers. The 7 unrevealed messages. Over the decades, much has been said about the apparitions, the fruits of prayer and conversion that were born there. But what has always generated the most curiosity are these secrets entrusted to the visionaries, kept in silence as if destined for a specific moment in history. And this silence, rather than dampening interest, only heightens the sense that something grand is yet to happen. The 7 messages of Medjugorje are seen by many as a spiritual map for the future of humanity. This isn't about sensationalist curiosity or predicting dates and events, but about understanding that a hidden truth is being preserved for the right time. Some say these revelations are linked to decisive moments that could impact not only local communities but the fate of entire peoples. Others believe they herald profound changes, tribulations that will require families to undertake an inner Preparation never before seen. The mystery surrounding these messages is precisely what makes them an inexhaustible source of reflection and anticipation. Now, what's striking is how Mary chose to communicate these secrets. They weren't handed over to political leaders, major institutions, or powerful figures. They were entrusted to simple young people from a village hidden among the mountains, without titles or positions, but with hearts willing to listen. This reveals something profound to us. What's at stake is not human greatness, but the willingness to live one's faith authentically. This detail alone carries a powerful lesson, because it shows that the behind the scenes of history often unfolds not on the visible stages of the world, but in the humble hearts that accept being instruments. The existence of these messages brings with it a natural tension. On the one hand, human beings seek to understand, desire details, and yearn for knowledge that can anticipate what is to come. On the other hand, the silence surrounding these secrets invites trust, patience, and preparation. It's as if there were a journey marked by stages, where each step is only revealed at the right moment. This dynamic is very reminiscent of spiritual life itself. There are decisions we only understand after experiencing them. There are truths that only reveal themselves when we are ready to receive them. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because the idea of unrevealed messages also reveals an important lesson about mindset and transformation. Mystery, far from being a barrier, becomes a call to change our perspective. Instead of passively waiting for the day when everything will be revealed, the invitation is to live now, as if the warnings were real, as if preparation were urgent. It's an opportunity to align daily decisions with a greater awareness, understanding that the impact of what we do now can determine how we face future challenges. Think of the families called to be faithful guardians. As we discussed earlier, if the 7 messages truly address moments of trial and tribulation, then there is no time to waste. Preparation begins not when the secret is read aloud, but now, in silent choices, in the cultivation of prayer, in unity preserved against all the forces that try to destroy it. The secret then becomes more than an enigma. It is a mirror that challenges us to reflect on how we are living today. It's curious to note how throughout history there have always been revelations reserved for specific times. Great transformations in humanity were preceded by signs, warnings, or prophecies that only made sense after they were fulfilled. The same may be happening in Medjugorje. Perhaps the 7 messages are exactly that, a preparation, an invisible script that will only be fully understood when humanity faces its great hour. Until then, all that remains is for us to do is accept the call to remain steadfast, attentive, and willing to change from within. And here's a key point: it doesn't matter whether or not someone believes every detail of the apparitions. The mere fact that undisclosed secrets exist already sparks powerful reflection. After all, what would you do if you knew there were hidden truths about the future, capable of impacting entire generations? This changes the way we view our own decisions, because it reminds us that the world isn't just what's in front of our eyes, but also what happens behind the scenes, invisible to the eye. The messages of Medjugorje, revealed or not, present us with a choice: to live in indifference or to adopt the stance of those who prepare with faith. It is a journey that requires vigilance, but also hope. Because, although the secrets may portend difficulties, they also carry the promise that light will never be overcome by darkness. And it is precisely this promise that gives meaning to the silence, and keeps the flame of expectation alive. Comment there. That makes sense to me. When we look at today's world, it's impossible not to notice how the messages of Medjugorje speak directly to our reality. The current scenario seems to confirm many of the warnings that, even without being fully revealed, were already hinted at in Mary's words. We live in times of constant crisis, profound divisions, and a gradual loss of values that were once seen as non-negotiable. Society moves at a fast pace, but at the same time, it seems increasingly empty within. Entire families suffer the impacts of this lack of roots, as if adrift in a turbulent sea. Without a firm foothold, think about how many times you've noticed that the hustle and bustle of everyday life has robbed you of the simplest, most essential moments at home. How many meals have been replaced by rushed get-togethers? How many conversations have stopped because everyone was absorbed in their own world, in front of a screen, or lost in their own worries? It's in this environment that the vulnerability of families becomes evident. What should be a refuge becomes a space of tension, disagreements, and heavy silences. And when the home loses its function as a fortress, the darkness of the world finds it even easier to penetrate. This loss of values doesn't happen suddenly, but gradually, almost imperceptibly. A mindset that disregards the sacred and relativizes everything slowly creeps in. What was once seen as essential, such as family prayer, mutual respect, and unity, in the face of difficulties, becomes seen as outdated or unimportant. This shift in perspective has a devastating impact, weakening the foundation that sustains not only individuals but entire generations. When the family ceases to be the first school of faith, the void that emerges gives way to all kinds of disorientation. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because this vulnerability is not just a social issue, but a spiritual one. We are facing a scenario in which many have lost the ability to see beyond the immediate. Decisions are made solely based on momentary pleasure or apparent comfort, without considering the long-term consequences. This mindset creates a cycle of fragility because nothing solid is built when the only concern is satisfying the present. It's like building a house on sand. The first storm is enough for everything to collapse. Mary had warned of this on numerous occasions, insisting that prayer and vigilance were necessary to endure trials. When we think about families today, we see exactly the opposite happening. Instead of vigilance, distraction; instead of prayer, indifference; instead of love, division. And this reversal has a profound impact, not limited to the domestic environment. It spreads throughout society, resulting in larger crises, violence, intolerance, loss of purpose. It's as if every family that fails to be a faithful guardian unwittingly contributes to the spread of a collective darkness. But what's most intriguing is that, even in the face of this bleak scenario, there are still homes that resist. Families that, against all external pressures, keep the flame of faith and unity alive. These often silent examples reveal that transformation is possible. They show that no matter how much the world tries to weaken values, there will always be those who choose fidelity. And this choice carries immense weight, because each family that decides to remain steadfast becomes a beacon in the midst of the storm, inspiring others to do the same. This is the hidden truth behind these messages. The battle isn't just in major events or in the daily headlines, but behind the scenes of ordinary life. It's in the way we treat each other, in the priorities we set, in the small decisions we silently make. Every choice within our homes can be a victory or a defeat on that spiritual journey. And that's why, more than ever, the mission of faithful guardians is necessary. Not as a distant ideal, but as an urgent need for our times. If we reflect honestly, we will realize that there have never been so many tools of distraction, so many ways to divide families and distance them from the essential. Technology, while bringing convenience, can also be used as a tool of isolation. The relentless pursuit of status or material achievements, while seemingly a step forward, often turns into a prison. It is in this context that the vulnerability of families is revealed, and it is also at this point that Mary's message gains even more power. She did not come to bring words of fear, but of preparation. She spoke not only of trials, but of hope. And this hope is realized when each home decides to be different. When each family chooses to be faithful to the calling they have received. Comment. There, I'm on this journey too. Being a faithful guardian doesn't mean performing great public feats, appearing before crowds, or bearing titles of authority. The mission entrusted to families is, in fact, silent, discreet, and at the same time profoundly transformative. It is in the intimate setting of the home, in seemingly small and almost invisible gestures, that this mission is fulfilled most powerfully. And it is precisely there that a hidden truth lies hidden. God's extraordinary is manifested in the simple. How often do we think that pleasing God requires something grand, a monumental work, a public offering for all to see? However, Mary reminds us that heaven's gaze values what is done in silence, away from the cameras, away from the applause. When a family decides to gather to pray, even if only for a few minutes at the end of a tiring day, this gesture has an impact that no statistic can measure. When a father or mother chooses to respond with patience instead of anger, they are building something greater than they imagine. When siblings reconcile after a disagreement, they are sowing seeds of peace that can bear fruit for generations. It is in this routine that the calling of faithful guardians comes to life. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because if we look behind the scenes of spiritual life, we will see that it has always been hidden attitudes that have sustained great transformations. A simple yes from Mary in Nazareth changed the entire history of humanity. A silent forgiveness offered by Joseph in an incomprehensible situation preserved the beginning of a divine plan. If back then the mission began within a simple home, why would it be any different today? It is within homes, amidst ordinary tasks and daily difficulties, that God's plan continues to be written. This silent mission is challenging precisely because it doesn't bring immediate applause. It's much easier to seek recognition than to dedicate oneself to something only God sees. But this is where the true mindset of a faithful guardian is revealed. They act not out of vanity, but out of love. They understand that every prayer, every gesture of care, every word of encouragement spoken at the right time is a stone placed in the construction of a spiritual fortress. This fortress may not be visible to the human eye, but it is felt in the impact it causes. Children who grow with hope, relationships that survive storms, families that remain united when so many others fall apart. Ultimately, the silent mission within the home is also an invitation to change the way we view our own choices. How often do we believe our actions don't matter because they seem too small? Yet it's precisely these everyday decisions that shape a family's spiritual journey. Prayer before a meal, an unexpected hug in the midst of a rush, a sincere gesture of gratitude, the choice to reconcile rather than harbor resentment. All of this builds an invisible but lasting legacy. And here's a powerful detail. When Mary speaks about prayer, fasting, and family love, she's not asking for something unattainable. She's pointing to attitudes that are within everyone's reach, regardless of status, knowledge, or social standing. There's no such thing as a perfect family, but there is a willing family. The faithful guardian isn't the one who never fails, but the one who decides to start over every day, even after falls and mistakes. This silent perseverance is, in itself, a victory. The world may despise these attitudes because they are not spectacular, but heaven values them as treasures. While human eyes seek grand signs and dramatic revelations, God looks behind the scenes, at what no one sees but which sustains the spiritual life of many. It is in this contrast that we understand the depth of the mission of families. They are called to live the extraordinary in simplicity, to guard their faith in the silence of their homes, to protect the light from darkness through gestures that, taken together, have an immeasurable impact. This truth transforms the way we approach daily life. What once seemed like an unimportant routine becomes recognized as a mission field. Caring for children, patient dialogue between husband and wife, the effort to maintain harmony even amidst difficulties, all of this becomes part of a spiritual battle that we often don't realize, but which is happening all the time. This battle is not won by grandiose speeches, but by consistent actions. It's a silent but profoundly effective struggle. And when we understand this, we also realize that this mission is not a solitary one. Each family that decides to live this way strengthens other families, inspires other homes to do the same. It's an invisible but real chain that spreads little by little, transforming the mindset of entire communities. And that's why Maria insists so strongly on this call, because she knows that the future isn't built solely on major events, but mainly on the small choices hidden within homes. Comment there. That makes sense to me. Even in the face of such strong warnings, there is one detail that can never be forgotten. Mary never speaks only of trials or darkness. In every message, even when the tone is warning, there is always a thread of hope that sustains those who listen. It is as if, by revealing the gravity of the times in which we live, she also opens a window to the future, saying that after the night will come the dawn. This phrase, simple and powerful, echoes as a reminder that no darkness is eternal, that faith has the strength to pierce any shadow. When we reflect on this, we realize that spirituality is not built on fear, but on promise. Night exists, darkness is real, but it does not have the final word. This mindset completely changes the way we view prophecies. They are not definitive sentences that crush humanity, but warnings that carry within them the possibility of transformation. Each message is also a chance for conversion, a call to change the course of decisions before it is too late. It is as if, behind every warning, there is always the outstretched hand of mercy. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because if we look behind the scenes at the history of faith, we'll see that this pattern has been repeated since the beginning. Whenever God sent a prophet, it wasn't just to announce calamities, but to open doors of return, to remind us that there was still time to return. This is also true in Medjugorje. The secrets may be linked to difficult times, but the essence of the message remains hope. This shows us that, even when all seems lost, there is a light that insists on being born. This perspective reveals a hidden truth we often forget. Hope is not a superficial emotion, but a conscious decision. In times of crisis, it becomes an act of resistance. It's easy to be swept away by pessimism, by headlines announcing tragedies, or by seemingly endless difficulties. What's difficult is keeping our hearts steadfast, believing that the dawn will come, even when everything around us seems to indicate otherwise. This is the challenge Mary presents to us. Choosing hope as a daily stance, a mindset that shapes our journey. The impact of this within families is immense. When a home chooses to live in hope, even amid financial problems, illness, or internal conflict, it becomes a beacon. The home ceases to be merely a space for socializing and becomes a space of spiritual resilience, a place where one believes that tomorrow can be better because faith is greater than any storm. This attitude doesn't eliminate problems, but it changes the way they are faced, and this change in attitude, albeit silent, transforms generations. Inner messages. Mary doesn't promise a painless path, but she assures us that no pain is permanent. After the night, the dawn will come. This promise invites us to walk through the darkness with confidence, to not give up when everything seems to be falling apart. It's like walking through a tunnel knowing that at the end there is light. The journey can be long, tiring, and even frightening, but the certainty of a way out gives us the strength to continue. And it is this certainty that she wishes to plant in the hearts of families, the faith that every tear can be transformed into a learning experience, every fall into a new beginning, every silence into preparation for something greater. When we see through this lens, even the harshest warnings take on new meaning. They are not curses, but warnings of love. They are like the warning of a mother who, upon seeing her child approaching danger, raises her voice not to frighten, but to protect. The tone may be firm, but the intention is always to save. This is the essence of prophecy, to show that there is a real risk, but also a way out, and that path is always marked by hope, faith, and love. This understanding leads us to reflect on our own choices. Faced with the current darkness, do we decide to give in to fear or cultivate hope? Life is full of signs, small and large, that invite us to believe in the dawn. An unexpected reconciliation, an unlikely healing, a word of comfort at the right time. All these are reminders that the light is still present, even when it seems hidden. These signs of hope are constantly given, but we must learn to see them, because it is through them that God shows that He never abandons His children. And perhaps this is the most profound point. Hope is not just hoping for a better future, but recognizing that the present is already full of small dawns. Even in the middle of the night, light begins to dawn, in details we often overlook. With every gesture of love, every act of faith, every decision not to surrender to despair, we are already anticipating the promised dawn. This realization radically changes our mindset, because it allows us to live not as victims of darkness, but as protagonists of a journey illuminated by trust. Comment there. I wait for the dawn. When we speak of prophecies, secrets, and messages that point to difficult times, it's natural for many to feel fear or even a sense of helplessness. But there's something that always reminds us of the silent strength of faith. The testimonies of ordinary people, of entire families who, even amidst great trials, managed to remain standing. These stories aren't just beautiful memories or isolated tales. They are concrete signs that what Mary asked for in her messages truly transforms lives. They are like small sparks that, together, ignite a flame that endures the darkest night. Consider, for example, families who have endured wars, persecution, or severe economic crises. Many have lost everything: homes, possessions, even loved ones, yet they have not lost their faith. The history of Medjugorje is replete with stories of people who, even amidst devastation, found the strength to continue believing. A mother who prayed alone in a basement with her children while bombs fell all around. A father who maintained the habit of thanking God for bread, even when that bread was so small it barely fed everyone. Brothers and sisters who, instead of surrendering to hatred and division, chose the path of forgiveness and reconciliation. These actions did not immediately change the external landscape, but they created a space of inner resilience that no destructive force could erase. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because what gives these testimonies strength is not only the beauty of the narrative, but the mindset that sustains them. These families understood that true victory lies not in avoiding all pain, but in not allowing pain to steal hope. The decision to remain faithful to the faith, even when all seems lost, is a courageous choice that completely transforms the journey. This is what Mary calls us to live, not a path without difficulties, but a posture that remains firm within them. There are also more recent stories of families who, amid the pressures of the modern world, decided to resist the forces that seek to erode fundamental values. I recall the story of a couple who, faced with financial difficulties, instead of giving in to despair or distancing themselves from each other, chose to transform the crisis into a moment of greater unity. Every night before bed, they gathered with their children to pray, asking for strength and wisdom. It wasn't a long or sophisticated prayer, but it was sincere, spoken from the heart. Over time, they realized that this practice not only sustained them spiritually, but also strengthened the bonds of affection within their home. Proof that, even in times of uncertainty, small decisions of faith can yield great results. Another family reported that after losing a child in painful circumstances, they almost succumbed to grief that seemed unbearable. But they chose not to surrender to the darkness. They decided to transform their pain into service. They began sheltering at-risk youth, offering guidance and care. This gesture didn't erase their longing, but it gave new meaning to life and kept them united in a greater purpose. This is the invisible impact of faith lived in daily life. It doesn't eliminate suffering, but it gives it new meaning, allowing something to emerge from it that inspires other lives. These testimonies show that Mary's messages are not just pretty words or distant advice. They become reality when someone decides to put them into practice, even in the midst of adverse circumstances. And what's most impressive is how these silent actions spread, touching people who may never have heard of Medjugorje. A child who grows up in a home of faith carries with them a different mindset, which will later influence their friends, their community, their own family. It's a current that multiplies without us being able to fully measure its reach. Behind these stories lies a powerful revelation. It's not the magnitude of the ordeal that defines a family's future, but the choices made within it. And this is a lesson that echoes directly in the unspoken messages. Even without knowing all the details of the secrets, we already know the essence. Families united in prayer and love can withstand any darkness. This certainty gives us the strength to move forward, even when the world around us seems to be crumbling. What's striking is that these testimonies don't just belong to the past or to distant people. They may be much closer than we imagine. Perhaps you've seen the silent power of faith in action within your own home or in the life of someone close to you. A grandmother who never stopped praying for her grandchildren, even without seeing immediate results. A father who silently sacrificed his own desires to keep the family together. A mother who, even when exhausted, never gave up teaching simple yet eternal values. These are stories that may seem common, but they carry within them a greatness that the world often overlooks. These examples reinforce the authority of Mary's messages because they show that the impossible can be faced with faith and perseverance, and they invite us to look at our own journey with new eyes. We don't need to wait for a major event to begin living as faithful guardians. We can start now, with small but consistent decisions that will impact not only ourselves but also generations to come. Right there, I'm on this journey too. When we talk about messages of warning, it can seem like everything revolves around fear of what's to come. But what Mary left in Medjugorje wasn't just a warning, it was also a very concrete call to prepare. She didn't simply say that difficult times would come, but she indicated the spiritual weapons capable of sustaining families in each person in those moments. And herein lies an important revelation. The weapons she presents are not material. They don't involve physical force or human strategies of power, but simple yet powerful spiritual practices, prayer, fasting, and community life. Prayer is Mary's first and most insistent request, not as a mechanical repetition of words, but as a living encounter with God. How often, in the rush of everyday life, do we transform prayer into an almost automatic act, performed merely to fulfill an obligation? However, what she asks of us is a present heart, a mindset willing to open itself to sincere dialogue with heaven. Prayer is nourishment for the soul. It is strength to resist temptations that arise subtly. It is clarity to make decisions when everything seems confusing. A family that prays together doesn't just repeat phrases, but creates an environment of spiritual protection, where each member feels supported and strengthened. This is the first shield against darkness. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because when we think of fasting, many reduce this practice to simply renouncing food. But Maria always explained that fasting has an impact that goes far beyond the body. It educates the will, transforms the mindset, and creates inner space for faith to flourish. By fasting, we learn to master our own impulses, to realize that we are not slaves to immediate desires. This gives us a strength that no amount of wealth can offer, the ability to choose consciously, to say no to what destroys and yes to what builds. Fasting is not just a deprivation, it is a liberation. It distances the heart from distractions and brings it closer to what truly matters. That is why, in times of trial, it becomes such a powerful weapon. And no less important is community life. Mary never spoke of faith as a solitary path. On the contrary, she always emphasized the need to be together, to walk in unity, to strengthen one another, because she knows that no one endures alone. Darkness advances more strongly when someone isolates themselves, when they close themselves off in their own pain and try to carry the weight of life alone. Community, on the other hand, is like an invisible network that supports, sustains, reminds the discouraged heart that it is still worth believing. Living in community means sharing joys and pains, supporting one another, being guardians of faith not only within one's own home, but also in the greater space in which we live. This call to preparation is neither symbolic nor optional. It is urgent and real, because it's not about waiting for the future to arrive and then deciding to change, but about starting now to cultivate these practices as part of daily life. Prayer, fasting, and community life are not distant rituals, but choices possible for any family, anywhere in the world. And it is precisely because they are simple that many disregard them, without realizing that within them lies the strength that sustains the soul when everything around it crumbles. Behind this message lies a truth we cannot ignore. Spiritual preparation is the only thing that can overcome any crisis. You can have possessions, knowledge, and influence, but if your heart isn't rooted in faith, all of this is lost in the face of the first great storm. The preparation Mary calls for is not to avoid the night, but to have the strength to walk toward the dawn. And this preparation doesn't happen in grandiose speeches, but in small, consistent choices, repeated day after day, until they become part of who we are. The great transformation begins at this point, when we understand that prayer strengthens the spirit, fasting strengthens the will, and community strengthens the heart. This three-pronged approach creates a balance capable of facing any adversity. It's not a magic formula, but a path of fidelity. Each decision in this regard builds an invisible legacy that extends far beyond ourselves, reaching our children, grandchildren, and all those we live with. Therefore, when we think about preparation, we cannot reduce it to a burdensome duty, but recognize it as a privilege. To prepare is to participate in a greater plan, to be aware that we are part of a divine story being written in the present. It is choosing to live with purpose, knowing that our actions, however small they may seem, impact the destinies of many. And this impact is silent but real, because it transforms not only those who practice it, but everyone around them. In there, I choose to prepare myself. Being a faithful guardian today means much more than repeating pretty words or carrying a spiritual label. It is a practical, direct, and urgent calling that needs to manifest itself in the heart of everyday life. Guarding the faith, these days, is like swimming against a current that insists on dragging everything toward indifference, immediacy, and superficiality. But that is precisely the greatness of this mission, keeping the flame of faith burning within the home, even when the world around us seems to grow cold. And this doesn't require spectacular feats, but concrete attitudes, lived every day, which together build a firm and secure spiritual refuge. One of the first things to do is family prayer. It may seem simple, but think about the impact it has. When a family gathers to pray, even for just a few minutes a day, a sacred space is created in the midst of everyday life. That seemingly small moment becomes a place of encounter, not only with God, but with each other. It is in this moment that hearts align, the burdens of the day are shared, and hope is rekindled. This practice teaches children that faith is not just a distant theory, but a present reality, built in the home, among those they love. It's like planting invisible seeds that, over time, will grow into deep roots. Another essential attitude is teaching values. In a world where truth seems increasingly relative and everything is quickly questioned or discarded, the faithful guardian is the one who transmits, with coherence and love, the principles that sustain spiritual and human life. It's not just about words spoken in speeches, but about concrete examples: respect, listening, forgiving, being honest even when no one is looking. Children learn much more from actions than from advice, and every decision made at home becomes a silent lesson that shapes the future. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because being a faithful guardian today also means learning to support each other in faith. It's not just about what each person does individually, but about the strength that comes from unity. When a family decides to face its spiritual, emotional, or material difficulties together, something powerful happens. A bond is created that darkness cannot break. This mutual support is what transforms the home into a true spiritual fortress. Every word of encouragement, every gesture of care, every effort to maintain unity is a brick placed in this invisible construction. Behind the scenes of this mission, there's also an important revelation. Being a faithful guardian isn't about living a perfect life, without flaws or failures. It's quite the opposite. It's about recognizing one's own fragility but choosing, each day, to start over. It's about falling and getting back up. It's about fighting and then reconciling. It's about feeling fear but deciding to trust. This sincerity in the process is what makes faith authentic and generates a real impact on those around you. Because it's not perfection that inspires, but perseverance. Practicing faith at home can also manifest itself in simple yet meaningful decisions. Choosing to give thanks before meals, setting aside time to talk without distractions, deciding not to let anger linger until the next day, valuing the presence of family members instead of losing yourself in screens. All of this, which may seem small, is actually an act of resistance against indifference and division. These are choices that, together, create an atmosphere of peace that protects each person's heart. And being a faithful guardian today also means looking outward. Without losing the essence of home, it's welcoming those in need, teaching by example, being a light that transcends the walls of one's own home. Often, a gesture of kindness or a word of encouragement spoken to someone outside can be a reflection of the faith lived within. This openness expands the family's mission, making it not only a guardian of its own faith, but a living witness that hope is still possible in such dark times. This mission, when lived day to day, becomes a journey of transformation, because the more a family dedicates itself to prayer, teaching values, and supporting one another, the stronger it becomes in the face of difficulties. Faith, in this context, is not just a spiritual practice, but a mindset that shapes every decision, and this shift in mindset is what allows us to navigate crises without losing our way, face losses without despair, and look to the future with confidence. Ultimately, being a faithful guardian today means choosing to live consciously, understanding that every action has an impact that extends far beyond the present. It's realizing that every gesture of love, every shared prayer, every transmitted value becomes part of an invisible chain that sustains not only the family itself, but also the world around it. This is the greatness of the mission entrusted to families, to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary, the small into the eternal, the silent into the powerful. Comment there. I am a faithful guardian. Being a faithful guardian, deep down, means understanding that your family is not just a product of chance, but part of a much greater calling. Every gesture of love, every shared prayer, every effort to maintain unity in the face of difficulties, is part of a silent mission, but one with an incalculable impact. When we look at Mary's messages, we understand that it is no coincidence that she so insists on the value of homes, because it is within them that the true spiritual battle takes place. It is there that it is decided whether hope will remain alive or be extinguished by the weight of indifference. And this decision does not lie in the hands of distant people, but in each of us, in our daily lives, in the seemingly small choices that shape the future. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic. Because recognizing family as the guardian of faith is not just a beautiful idea, but a revelation that transforms the way we approach life. Our mindset changes completely when we understand that we are not just surviving the days, but building something that goes beyond our own existence. It's as if each home were a backstage of human history, a place where silent decisions have repercussions far beyond our wildest imagination. A family prayer may seem insignificant to the world, but before heaven, it has the power to move entire realities. This is the invisible impact Mary wants to remind us. Every family has an essential role in this spiritual journey. It's not about waiting for leaders or institutions to do what's up to us. The mission has been entrusted to each home, because it is there that love is learned, practiced, and transmitted. And if each family embraces this hidden truth, the entire world can be transformed from the inside out. This is the hope she leaves us, that even in the middle of the night, the dawn is already preparing to break through the faithfulness of those who choose to remain steadfast. And perhaps you feel this call deep within your heart, as if something silent is saying, "My family also has a special mission." If this thought resonates within you, then it's already a sign that this invitation isn't distant, but personal. It's no coincidence that you're hearing it now. It's part of your own journey, a reminder that your home can be much more than a physical space. It can be a fortress, a beacon, a refuge of hope in a time marked by crisis and division. And that's why I want to leave you with a special invitation. If you also feel that your family has a God-given mission, write in the comments, "We are faithful guardians," because this statement isn't just a phrase, it's a commitment. It's the union of hearts that believe that together we can prepare for the times to come. If you've made it this far, it's because this message resonated with you in some way. And I want to thank you for walking with me to the end of this content. If you feel this video brought you value, subscribe to the channel to continue following reflections like this. That's how we keep this exchange alive and grow together on this path of faith and hope. Please also leave a like, as it helps this content reach more people who may need to hear this exact word today. And to let me know you've been with me this far, leave the phrase "I'm with you until the end" in the comments. It'll be special to recognize those who have walked with me this far. And look, you don't have to stop here. There's a video right here that complements this topic and will delve even deeper into this journey. Click and continue with me there. It'll be a natural continuation of this conversation we just started.